It's an AFC South victory Monday as the Indianapolis Colts took down the Tennessee Titans for their first divisional win of the season. So, what's to make of all of the action from Sunday? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Indianapolis Colts on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and as always, I'm joined here by my co-host of the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, Drake Wally. Drake, it was a slugfest yesterday. Not a very pretty game to watch, quite ugly at times, honestly. But in the end, the Colts had a very good fourth quarter. There were some clutch plays made by guys that we weren't even expecting to be out there this Sunday. But in the end, the Colts got their first divisional win of the season. And despite all the chaos and all the injuries around this team, they're still somehow 3-3.
Yeah, they're still somehow second in the division right now. They're in front of Jacksonville, who's spiraling, and of course Tennessee just lost their first AFC South game of the year. So, yeah, man. I mean, you're looking at some injuries that were on the team, and a certain player that we'll get to played through it. We had guys return from injury that were key to this game. Of course, there's also some areas that we'll need to discuss that are still kind of glaring for this football team. They're about to play some very difficult competition after the Dolphins. So I think that there's a lot of room to grow. But, hey, man, a win's a win. And divisional games, even if one team sucks and the other is brilliant, they tend to always be slugfest somehow.
Exactly. So we're going to dive into everything from yesterday's matchup between the Colts and the Titans. Talk about that fourth quarter where the Colts outscored the Titans 10-0. Obviously, we'll talk about Joe Flacco and his up and down day, and then everything surrounding this defense, because some areas were great, other areas still need some work on. But overall, it was a good day for the Indianapolis Colts. Truett is getting us kicked off with a super chat. Thank you so much, buddy, for all of your support. And Truett is saying, I think it's ironic benching AR because of hip or a chance he gets hurt to supposedly send him a message. To be clear, to be careful when the reason that he was drafted was for his running ability. And Truett also said that's what reporters were saying. So yeah, and the thing is, Anthony Richardson was not benched. We'll talk about Anthony Richardson later in the show. But there were some people out there that said Anthony Richardson got benched. That is not the case, guys. We'll dive into that all today because Shane Steichen actually gave an update today on the status of Anthony Richardson. Lindsay from across the pod, good to see you, my friend. Victory Monday, baby. Wasn't pretty at times, but a dub is a dub. Let's freaking go. Couple of big plays at crucial times, including Rigoberto Sanchez punt at the end. Beautiful. Absolutely. A chef's kiss. A hell of a punt. One of the best punts I've ever seen from Rigoberto Sanchez there with a mere 12 seconds left. Iced the game pretty much for the Indianapolis Colts. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for all of your support. Patrick is here, the CFO, currently the AFC 7th seed. Let's get it. No idea how we got here with this diarrhea defense and Gramps under center, but won't argue with it either. So honestly, yeah, after 6 weeks, it really could be a lot worse for the Indianapolis Colts. Sean Contwright is here. Hey guys, got the win. Defense was better, but still bad. But how about Womack? We're going to definitely talk about Samuel Womack. He is quickly coming on the scene for the Colts. And Stats Matt, of course. What's up? Didn't get to watch it live, but kind of glad I didn't. It wasn't the prettiest game to watch, that's for sure, Stats Matt. So, of course, guys, if you're here while we're getting started, make sure you're following us on all the socials. Like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow at Colts_SI on X and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Make sure you click that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night so you never miss us. And you guys must know what I'm going to say already because Lindsey Mack has it in a comment. If you can't catch them live, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, they're on there as well. Be sure to give them a 5-star review so they can continue to reach other Colts fans just like you. I love it. Maybe I need to switch it up because hopefully you guys aren't tuning me out when I am saying that. But and before we get started, guys, I'm wearing a special hat this evening. It's for my Uncle Willis, who passed away last week. Was a big Colts fan. Every time I saw him, would always ask me about the Colts and how they were doing. So this episode is dedicated to Uncle Willis tonight. So pour one out for him. I know he's up there watching, cheering on the Colts. So definitely want to dedicate this episode to him. So Drake, let's have a hell of a victory Monday.
That's right.
Let's get it going here. So the Colts clutch play takes down the Tennessee Titans 20-17. And like I said, Drake, wasn't pretty. Yes, the Colts got off to a hot start. First drive, it was basically how they got off to the start against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They drove right down the field. Joe Flacco looked surgical. That game script, those first 15 plays that Shane Steichen had dialed up, phenomenal. And the Colts were on. Ends with a touchdown to Josh Downs. After that, there wasn't much really to go home about until we got to the fourth quarter. But hey, in this league, I think we all know, everyone that pays attention at this point, whether it's the win like the Lions had over the Cowboys yesterday, or it's an ugly win like the Colts had over the Titans, you're never going to apologize for a win in the NFL.
Yeah, and the plays that needed to be made late in the game were made when they mattered by the top dollar guys, and the guys that you pay to when they have to come into relief at quarterback, they can level your offense. Okay, so it was a tough, hard-fought game. I think that both sides of the football played, admirably. Now, obviously, we'll kind of like get a little bit more into the offensive side to start. But, man, I do have to give Joe Flacco his roses real quick. I mean, the guy's 2-1. All right. He's 39. He cannot move. Can't move. And
yeah.
And he looks just fine. He looks just fine as a backup quarterback. I think that he's one of those guys that, you could, if he played all 17 games, you're probably still finishing 8-9, 9-8. But I don't think he really raises the floor of this offense very well. But for what he is and what he's getting paid to do, man, at this stage in his career, he's just collecting checks, just trying to keep playing football. And he's definitely outliving his age, as a football player for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Joe Flacco is doing what he was asked to do, be a serviceable backup quarterback that can keep this offense afloat if Anthony Richardson can't go. But Drake, I want to talk about that fourth quarter yesterday to start, because that's really where all the action started to pick up again for this Indianapolis Colts team. They outscored the Titans 10-0 in the fourth. Heading into the fourth, the Titans had a 17-10 lead. It seemed like they had the momentum. The Colts offense wasn't going anywhere. The Colts were giving up multiple plays, multiple third downs, I should say, including it was a 3rd and 19. And the Titans are just handing the ball off to not turn the football over, maybe get a little bit closer so that way they can kick a field goal. No, Tony Pollard instead on a 3rd and 19 takes it 23 yards untouched to the end zone for a touchdown. It was looking pretty bad for the Colts at that point, but they found a way to rally. 10-0 run in the fourth quarter, and the biggest, I guess, the biggest play of the fourth quarter was the touchdown pass from Joe Flacco to none other than Michael Pittman Jr. Drake, Michael Pittman Jr. What can I say that I haven't already about this kid? Wrote about him for Horseshoe Huddle that came out today. Make sure you guys should go check that out. But Drake, Michael Pittman Jr. wasn't even supposed to be playing on Sunday. We heard the reports middle of last week where it was a back injury that was severe enough to keep him out multiple weeks, and that the Colts were considering short-term IR. Nobody was expecting Michael Pittman Jr. to be out there in a few weeks, let alone Sunday against the Titans. But all of a sudden on Friday, Michael Pittman Jr. is practicing. Then the injury report comes out, and Michael Pittman Jr. was a full participant in practice, still marked as questionable, but all indications were that he was going to play. And, you're thinking, okay, maybe he's going to be a decoy. And that was pretty much the case for most of the game. But in that fourth quarter, Michael Pittman Jr., you saw that dog in him, comes out going up against L'Jarius Sneed, their huge free agent acquisition or trade acquisition for the Tennessee Titans this offseason. Right, the guy that supposedly the Colts were interested in when really they weren't, and everybody was up in arms. I had a lot of Titans fans telling me at the time when I said I didn't think that L'Jarius Sneed was really good for the Colts. They're telling me I was coping. Well, who's coping now? Titans fans, because Michael Pittman Jr. just skied up over your guy, got the game-winning touchdown with a bad back that should be keeping him out. Drake, I can't say enough about Michael Pittman Jr. and just how tough he is. What did you see out of number 11 yesterday? And just give me your thoughts on the performance of Michael Pittman Jr. And how important he was to this Colts win.
Yeah, look, man, Michael Pittman, you can't really state it enough. I think that when it was confirmed that he was going to go out, and actually be able to play, I was thinking, man, maybe he's pushing it a little too much. It's a back injury, and he wasn't really too impactful. But like you mentioned, man, when the game was on the line and plays needed to be made, dude has a bum back and just goes out there and just makes the plays that need to, when they need to be made. And the biggest one goes up against the number one cornerback on the Titans. And really, Brownlee played like the number one cornerback for the Titans yesterday. But L'Jarius Sneed got mossed by a guy that was probably at 75%. Okay. If that's what Michael Pittman can do for you when he's at 75% and probably has immense pain every step he's taking out there in his routes, imagine when he's fine. Imagine when he's back to 100%. Flacco literally just said, you know what? Okay, defender in his face, and just gave Pittman all the opportunity to go get that football, and he did. So I would say it was an absolute just dog-like performance. I know that that's been said a lot, but it's not too often in today's NFL where when there's an injury, you play through it. Okay, I'm not saying like that. Guys are always playing through injuries. Okay, I'm saying like stuff that might be IR related, that might send you to the bench for a couple games. You don't see guys just say, you know what? Nah, we're going to play through that, and then go out there and proceed to help win the game. So I think that Michael Pittman showed that he's worth every penny of that contract. I think that he's shown that this back issue, like you've mentioned, is probably, one of the reasons he's had a slow start. But holy crap, dude, went out there and made the biggest play of the game. So my hat's off to him. I will never, ever question. I don't think I ever did before. But I'll never question Michael Pittman's toughness ever again.
Yeah, I love this comment from AR5. Pittman really, really deserves the contract we gave him. Guy is an absolute dog, showing he is the true leader, and I think it's reflecting in the wide receiver room with all the success from Alec Pierce and Josh Downs. And I think that's true. Your leaders are the ones that mentality rubs off on the rest of the receiver room, not just the receiver room, but the locker room. And Drake, here's the thing. We've all had back injuries. Every single person's had a back injury. A lot of times when you're trying to reach, bend down, twist, any little wrong movement of that back, and it tightens up. Michael Pittman Jr. isn't just suffering from a sore back by any means. Michael Pittman Jr., the back injury was severe enough that it actually showed up on the MRI, and that's why the thought was he was going to miss multiple games because of this. So to see the what he did yesterday against L'Jarius Sneed, who is supposedly, I was told, a top 5 cornerback in the league. Michael Pittman Jr. jumps up, extends his arms way out there, extending that back, tightening up that back, out jumps L'Jarius Sneed, pulls down the football, and then holds on to it through the catch. You got to know that back is killing Michael Pittman Jr. Every little movement he does that, but he simply just wants it more. That is why he is nicknamed the Enforcer. That is why he's got a C on his chest, because he's a captain, because of how he dedicates himself to this team. Shane Steichen and Joe Flacco yesterday both said Michael Pittman Jr. is one of the toughest guys I've ever been around. Joe Flacco said he might even be the toughest guy I've ever played with. Think of all the legends that Joe Flacco has played with throughout the years in Baltimore and all the places that he stopped. And to put Michael Pittman on that level, that is insane. That is huge praise from Joe Flacco. The first stat of the day, presented by Busch Light. Perfect timing. Stat 1. L'Jarius Sneed yesterday, 4 receptions on 9 targets for 42 yards and a touchdown. All receptions ended in a first down or a touchdown. 0 PBUs. 1 pass interference penalty where he basically drug Alec Pierce down to the ground. And honestly, that those stats would have been much worse if Joe Flacco actually hits Alec Pierce Pierce late in the game on that bomb down the field, because Alec Pierce absolutely torched L'Jarius Sneed. Flacco just overthrew him. If not, it would have been a walk-in touchdown for Alec Pierce. So L'Jarius Sneed, not the banner day that he was hoping for, the Titans were hoping for, and the L'Jarius Sneed so far certainly has not been the acquisition that the Titans were thinking they were getting out of the former Pro Bowl cornerback. But yeah, Drake, Michael Pittman, can't say enough about him. But there's another wide receiver that was doing his thing yesterday as well. The other guy that missed all week in practiced on Friday, comes out and leads the team in pretty much every statistical category when it comes to receiving, and that's Josh Downs. Another fantastic day by Josh Downs, Drake. When you look at it, 7 catches for 66 yards and the touchdown. Again, he did most of his work in the short areas of the field, had the most targets by far yesterday with 9. The next closest on the team was Pittman with 5. So taking all of that into account, again, I don't think the Colts win this game yesterday if they don't have Josh Downs out there on the field. He was the guy that was consistently moving the chains and keeping drives alive. So Josh Downs certainly coming into his own, regardless if Anthony Richardson is out there or not. Ever since he's been back from that high ankle sprain, you've noticed how big of an impact Josh Downs has had on this offense.
Yeah, just in his last 3 games, I don't have the yardage in front of me, but we're talking about 24 catches on 30 targets with 2 touchdowns.
Wow.
I mean, he is emerging, ladies and gentlemen, as kind of like a wide receiver 1, kind of. I mean, he's taking all the volume. He's setting the pace for the passing game. He's still making plays downfield. That was a 22-yard touchdown, by the way, where he just made the Titans secondary look like, oh, well, there he is. It's almost like they look back there and they're like, oh, well, there's the ball. It's right. And no one was around him. He was wide open. So Josh Downs is really coming into his own. And I think that once you get a healthy Michael Pittman, 100, well, he's healthy enough to play, right? But a 100 or close to 100% Michael Pittman. And then you've got Pierce and Mitchell. Speaking of L'Jarius Sneed, I know Sneed's having a really rough year right now. He's not and having anywhere near the season he had last year with Kansas City with the Titans this year. But Adonai Mitchell put him almost on his ass on a whip route. I mean, once Adonai Mitchell figures it out, I mean, watch that clip. L'Jarius Sneed loses him entirely. And this is a 21-year-old rookie, I think we're talking about. So once those guys put those things together, along with Josh Downs, I can't imagine what the potential of the receiving core can be. And I know that Josh Downs is right now, he's kind of on pace for like 90 catches and like 900, maybe even 1,000 yards and like 5 or 6 touchdowns. That's fantastic. And you can't really ask for more, man. Joe Flacco was going to him constantly. And then against the Jaguars, he had 12 targets.
Because Michael Pittman Jr. hasn't been himself because of the back injury, obviously, it has hampered him some. You sure. Look at although Michael Pittman had a huge game, we didn't even talk about the catch on 2nd down when the Colts are trying to bleed the clock. Flacco rolls out and he throws it to Pittman again with L'Jarius Sneed in coverage, and Pittman brings it down for 16 yards. But Pittman yesterday only 3 catches for 35 yards and the touchdown. So if you're just looking at that stat line and you didn't watch the game, you're thinking he had a pedestrian day. It's kind of the same thing for Josh Downs. Yes, he had 7 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown, but it isn't the game-breaking type of game that you would see, that you would expect if you're just looking at the box score. You have to actually be watching this game. And Drake, the biggest thing I've noticed out of Josh Downs is he was coming out of North Carolina. You know, as a rookie, a 3rd-round pick, he was a really good route runner in his own right, had really good hands. He's just taken that up a notch. It seems like he's taken that route running and he's more explosive. It seems he's creating more separation. And here's the thing, a lot of these defenses kind of have a sense of the types of routes that Josh Downs is going to be running, those option routes inside, those quick routes, and they still can't stop him most of the time. And that's the mark of a good receiver, where the defense knows exactly what you're going to do, but you still go out there, execute it, and you're still able to help your team. And in in the role that you're given. So because of the struggles that Michael Pittman has had, because he's been dealing with that back injury all year, and that's certainly hampering him, Josh Downs right now is leading the Colts in receiving because of this. So, I mean, not receiving yards, that goes to Alec Pierce, but in terms of catches, targets, it's been Josh Downs. So until Michael Pittman can get to 100%, they're leaning on Josh Downs. And so far, so good for this Colts offense. And I think once Anthony Richardson gets back, we talked about it all through training camp, the connection that Richardson and Downs were having with one another. I don't think it's going to take very long for that to show itself again here on the field. I think Josh Downs is going to not skip a beat when Joe Flacco goes off the field. Anthony Richardson comes back in. You're going to see the same production out of number one, and it's just going to continue to help shoulder the load until Michael Pittman can come back and have a bigger role with this offense and can be relied upon more once that back is healed.
Yeah, and to trust guys with option routes where you're trusting, I mean, the quarterback's trusting them to figure out their own. It's one of like 3, 4, 5. I know that our own Zach Hicks could probably break this down way more than my dumb ass can right now, but basically, you have a set amount of routes, and you have to determine based off of the coverage as the receiver from the point of the snap to the point of that ball being released, which one you're going with, and the quarterback trusts you with that. And I mean, Downs he absolutely fries people. I mean, he just roasts coverage, and it just seems like he's progressively getting better. Now, he's going to hit a wall in one of these games where there's going to be real tight slot coverage, and he's going to kind of get bottled up. It's just inevitable, but it doesn't seem like it's happened so far. And I mean, the Colts have an upcoming opponent that has struggled valiantly without their starting quarterback, could get a lot of, opportunities with the football again. So you can't say enough about Josh Downs, man. Your number one receiver's been playing hurt. You've got a guy who's really breaking out in Alec Pierce, but he's not a volume guy. Then A.D. Mitchell is just a rookie trying to figure it out. Downs has really been that constant since he's come back from that high ankle sprain, and thank God, because the tight ends outside of this game, Andrew, really haven't done much. And so without Josh Downs, it's kind of like, where the hell would this offense even be through 6 games?
Yeah, exactly. But it wasn't just the offense in the fourth quarter, Drake. It was the defense stepping up. Like I said, 0 points allowed in the fourth quarter to this Titans team. And the Titans were sure trying to throw the football and get down the field. Will Levis was taking his shots and really testing the defensive backs for the Indianapolis Colts. They were just stepping up and not allowing him to have success. And I want to start out with probably the biggest revelation for this Colts team the entire year, and that's Samuel Womack III. Drake, Womack has been fantastic. I saw Landon Oliver of the Blue Stable tweet this out, and he said, for all of Chris Ballard's faults in being able to draft cornerbacks, he sure knows how to get them off the waiver wire. First with Kenny Moore back in 2017, and now it seems like with Samuel Womack in 2024. Samuel Womack, fantastic yesterday. If you look at the box score, it's not going to really stand out. Only 1 tackle, but he did have 2 pass deflections. He allowed 1 reception, I think, yesterday for 2 yards, 1 catch for 2 yards, and he was the primary defender. As here we go, stats Matt stat of the day number 2, presented by Busch Light. Samuel Womack III allowed just 1 reception on 5 targets for 2 yards. He was the primary defender on Calvin Ridley for most of the day. Calvin Ridley is sorry, buddy. I'm sorry about that, but all credit to Stats Matt on that stat of the day. That's for sure. But Drake, he was the primary defender on Calvin Ridley for most of the day. Calvin Ridley had 0 catches on 8 targets yesterday, was very frustrated after the game. You can't say enough about how good Samuel Womack has played. Juju Brents went down with this injury, and the Colts, and you're thinking, like, who the Colts go to now? Certainly wasn't Dallas Flowers. He's now no longer even with the team. Samuel Womack has stepped in, and he is playing not only just like serviceable, he's playing fantastic football for this Indianapolis Colts team.
Yeah, Safari's playing like their best cornerback, honestly, man. Like, every time the ball goes anywhere near him, it either gets knocked away or it's for a short gain. He's had great instincts, and I'm telling you, go check out Indianapolis Colts on SI's Zach Hicks. Just released a phenomenal film piece on his performance from the Titans game. I mean, he was everywhere. They didn't target him for a reason. They still, like Andrew mentioned, they stayed away from Sam Womack. I mean, it was just one of those things where he's really coming into his own. He said, I'm never going to get cut again. When he came to the Indianapolis Colts, it really jarred him. He's like, this is ridiculous. And he clearly knew he had the talent. So it cannot be stated enough that when you are through 6 weeks, we're not talking about the Colts secondary really being an issue. I know that there was some miscommunication during that game where I think it was Nick Westbrook-Akine caught a touchdown, but like it's mostly been the interior run defense and bad tackling from your linebackers. That's where the issues have been, and just bad coverage late in the game, allowing a lot of underneath throws and then not making the tackle. It's not been the cornerbacks, man. They've stepped up, and Sam Womack's been one of the biggest reasons for that.
Yeah, exactly. And CFO, don't worry, I've got your stuff right here. Was just saving it till after Drake replied. Hey, listen, you've given enough super chats, buddy. I am by no means trying to pull more out of you. You've given us enough super chats to last a lifetime. But the CFO bringing his own stats. Let me know what your favorite drink is, and I'll have it sponsor your stats of the day as well, Patrick. Samuel Womack is the best free agent signing of the year, and it's not even close. Against all our cornerbacks in the NFL, Womack is currently ranked third on Pro Football Focus in total defense and third in coverage. Who would have thought? And this was a guy that the 49ers just let go. Obviously, the 49ers have plenty of talent, but at the same time, I don't think anybody was expecting Samuel Womack to be this good with the Indianapolis Colts. You think a guy that's getting claimed off of waivers is going to be, you're hoping he's a solid depth piece. You're hoping he can contribute on special teams. Samuel Womack is going out there and is, I would arguably the best cornerback on the Indianapolis Colts right now, including Kenny Moore II. So it's going to be very interesting to see, as Sean Contright saying, Brent's is going to have trouble regaining his starting position. That's the thing. Yeah. If Samuel Womack keeps this up, Drake, and starts I think the only thing that Womack can improve on is the turnovers. And so if he starts forcing turnovers as well, buddy, Samuel Womack's going to go into next season as the starting outside cornerback. Juju Brents is going to have to earn that back. So, a great job by Samuel Womack. It's just a testament to how well he is playing. And certainly, you want this to continue throughout the season, considering how the depth of the Colts at cornerback is still razor thin.
Yeah, and you definitely want Juju Brents back, though, because imagine Juju Brents fully healthy now with finding out Sam Womack the third can freaking play defense, then Jalen Jones and Kenny Moore, and then perhaps, a draft pick next season. I mean, it's been just one of the best surprises, I think, of any recent random signing the Colts have had, because I remember when he got picked up, and myself included, I was kind of like, is this really a solution? And it is. So, all right.
Exactly. Stats Matt saying the Colts are the only team with two cornerbacks in the top 12 in coverage grade, according to Pro Football Focus. Wow. Anyone think that was going to happen 8 weeks ago? And that is Samuel Womack and Jalen Jones. So definitely a surprising statement for those that haven't really been watching or have their own narratives about this Indianapolis Colts secondary. And Jalen Jones, Drake too. Jalen Jones. I mean, yes, he did have the pass interference call. He had a pass interference that wasn't called and definitely should have. But hey, I mean, it goes both ways sometimes. But Jalen Jones, I thought, did a really good job on DeAndre Hopkins yesterday. Hopkins only had 4 catches for 54 yards. Jalen Jones was the primary defender on those, and he was really physical. He played well in run support. Jalen Jones, 0 missed tackles yesterday as well, which is big for Jalen Jones. He's certainly coming into his own as well.
Yeah, and it's really good to just see him start to stack performances. Now, there have, of course, the Green Bay game, and there's been a couple other moments where he's had, he's kind of had pitfalls, but he's also super young. I think he's like 21 or 22 also. So it's just the way that he's playing as a 7th rounder, where he is a blanket cover type of guy. He's already got a couple turnovers. He's also improving along with Sam Womack. I mean, it's crazy to say, ladies and gentlemen, and all Colts fans, that those are your top 2 defensive backs on the outside right now.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously need to keep it going. We're only 6 weeks into this thing,
Yeah.
but promising signs from those cornerbacks. Jalen Jones was 7 tackles yesterday and a pass deflection. And then, of course, the safeties. Nick Cross, again, another game with a huge amount of tackles, was second on the team with 8 tackles yesterday, including a tackle for loss. And then Julian Blackman. We've been waiting for the playmaking ability of Julian Blackman to show itself this year. It finally did. Yes, Will Levis threw that rainbow pass, and it was, I mean, a pretty easy read for Julian Blackman to make, but he still went out there, made the play, got the interception, was able to stay in bounds. So overall, a pretty good game out of this Indianapolis Colts secondary yesterday. Only 95 yards passing allowed out of Will Levis. And a lot of that can be contributed to those guys in the secondary. Didn't really talk about Kenny Moore that much either. But overall, those 5 guys in the secondary played very, very well yesterday against the Titans.
Yeah, and for the safeties, real brief, Blackman had I believe it was either him or Cross that had a brutal miscue on a flat route that led to that touchdown. But outside of that, man, I mean, Blackman gets a turnover. Nick Cross just continues to be a tackling machine, still gets a tackle for loss. That dude, along with Sam Womack, have been 2 guys that Chris Ballard can basically look fans in the eye and say, I told you these guys would work out. And it's wild to think that those 2 are some of the best playmakers in the secondary, but Colts haven't really had an issue with their secondary, and that's something we thought that they would really struggle with.
All right, we've talked about the fantastic fourth quarter the Colts have. Let's talk about the quarterback that was leading it all, Joe Flacco. And Drake, here's where things, I mean, we've been talking for the first half hour of the show, all glowing. Joe Flacco did his thing yesterday, but it wasn't all great. I mean, you look at Joe Flacco's stats from yesterday, definitely a step back from his performance against the Jaguars. 22 of 38 for 189 yards. He had 2 touchdowns and the interception, but he had multiple misses out there, Drake. Multiple misses where it seemed like he was sailing high, seemed like the pressure was getting to him at times. Obviously, the big miss down the field to Alec Pierce that would have been a walk-in touchdown that definitely would have sealed the game at that point. And again, you just this is the same complaint I had last week too, is that when Joe Flacco is out there, sure, you're definitely, the passing game looks more efficient. He can still hit the deep play, and he certainly made some really good plays out there, some really good throws. The throw to Michael Pittman on both the touchdown and on the that second down rollout, multiple throws to Josh Downs, but he just doesn't possess the dynamic. He just makes this offense less dynamic, I should say, because he's not a threat to throw the football. That allows defenses to key in on Joe Flacco or key in on the running game. There's no threat that Flacco's going to take off. So it makes this Colts team, it doesn't keep the defense on their toes like it does when Anthony Richardson is out there. But again, the Colts didn't sign Joe Flacco to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and right. To expect Joe Flacco to lead a team to the Super Bowl at this point in his career, I think that's asking a lot, and it's not being fair to Joe Flacco. The Colts brought Joe Flacco in here to be a very, very good backup quarterback, where if this same situation that's happening now, this is what the entire reason they brought him in. If Anthony Richardson goes down, has to miss a game or two, and Joe Flacco has to step in and win a game or two, or at least keep the Colts competitive, he can do that. He can do that and more. I think that the Colts could be a 500 team with Joe Flacco as the quarterback. But the thing is, the offense is still, putting out over 20 points a game with Flacco out there. But once Anthony Richardson is out there, and if you can replicate what he was doing against the Pittsburgh Steelers before he got hurt, this offense, the ceiling of this offense just explodes. There is an obvious ceiling to the offense when Joe Flacco was in there. And I mean, guys, again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not hating on Joe Flacco, but it just puts things into perspective that for this team to reach the highest of heights that it can possibly get, Anthony Richardson needs to be in there. But overall, I will say a solid day from Joe Flacco, did enough for the Colts to win. But if you're looking at that performance and saying that Joe Flacco should be the starter moving forward, I think you're still missing, number one, the entire point of the season, and number two, you're not thinking clearly about the potential of this offense with Anthony Richardson in there.
Yeah, and think again. I mean, Steichen's scheme is designed at its height of explosiveness. It's achieved when you have a quarterback like Richardson, not a quarterback like Flacco. You also can't take deep shots and be explosive if you can't get away from pressure. Flacco can't get away from pressure. Okay. Flacco also has 71 out of 108 completions. That's great, but for 716 yards, we talk about that game where he had 134 of those passing yards to Alec Pierce against the Jaguars. I mean, even with that, that was on 3 completions. He still barely averages over 10 yards of completion. He's a check down god. Joe Flacco is a safe passer. I'll give him so much credit, though. 7 touchdowns, 1 pick, 1 fumble. For a guy that literally is a statue, can't move, he's doing great things out of that pocket. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, Flacco gives you in 17 games with this offense fully healthy, even Jonathan Taylor, even Will Fries, right back in there at right guard. You still, at the best, finish probably 9-8. He's going to run into defenses that are going to take away that deep ball while being able to get pressure with 4 guys, or maybe a fifth guy blitzing. And Flacco can't get away from that. All of a sudden, you put number 5 in there, and Anthony Richardson makes 1 blitz or miss. There's a lane. Goodbye. He's out of there. And it's a 75-yard run to the end zone. And we saw Joe Burrow, who can't run anywhere near like that, do that against the Giants. So I'm telling you that this offense is so much more explosive with Anthony Richardson. It's good that Flacco is proving he can be that stable backup. But please stop asking for this guy to start, okay? Anthony Richardson should be your starting quarterback, and that's how you really achieve things.
Yeah, I agree. Paul Wilson, our good buddy, thank you so much for the super chat, brother. Really, really do appreciate it. And Paul asks a very interesting question. Paul says, I don't think Joe should be the starter, but do you guys think he is the best backup in the league or not so much? Paul, if he's not the best backup in the league, he's got to be in at least the top 3. I'm trying to think of the other backups around the league as Drake takes a nice big old sip of that beer. I'm trying to think of the other backups around the league that I would put ahead of Flacco, or at least are in the conversation of a best backup in the league. Gardner Minshew, I think, obviously, we saw what Gardner Minshew did last year. Gardner Minshew is currently a backup to Aiden O'Connell, so Minshew is in that conversation. Do you put Jameis Winston in that conversation? I don't know. Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby didn't play very well. He just got benched for Drake May. I'm trying to think of some others around the league. Andy Dalton has certainly come in and played well at times to Bryce Young, but he's probably Bryce Young's bench now. So when you're looking around the league, there's really not anyone that I think is on Joe Flacco's level right now in terms of backup quarterback. Chat, if I'm missing somebody, please throw some names in there to jog my memory. But Drake, what do you think? Do you think that Joe Flacco is the best backup quarterback in the league at this point?
I gotta give credit to Malik Willis too.
Yeah.
He went out there and won multiple games instead of Jordan Love, in Jordan Love's stead. I thought of Will Levis, Jordan Love, and Stead all at the same time, and it was just a nightmare for a second. So I'm back to planet Earth here. But I think Joe Flacco right now, given that he's 7-1 with the touchdown to interception ratio, you're 2-1 playing most of the game, 1-1 as a starter, being his age, having an injury to a really good right guard who was one of the best in the NFL. Yeah, I say he's playing definitely the best backup ball of anyone in the NFL right now. And I just think, though, that you're really excited to at least hear that Anthony Richardson's on track to play, because while Joe Flacco's done good things, it's only a matter of time before there's a defense that's like, okay, we've got this guy figured out. We can bottle him.
Yeah, the only other ones that I think could kind of fall into that conversation, and depending on how you look at it, is Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Is Justin Fields the backup at this point because he started all year? Russell Wilson is kind of the backup at this point, so maybe those guys could fall into the conversation. Jake Browning, as Stats Matt says, that's a good one. But at this point, I do think it is Joe Flacco, and until another backup goes out there and actually proves that they can play as good of winning football as Flacco, then I think you have to give it to him, especially with how many people on the outside are clamoring for him to start for the Indianapolis Colts. But Paul, thank you so much for all of your support. We really, really do appreciate it. But yeah, guys, I mean, Joe Flacco is playing incredible football for a backup quarterback. But again, he's not the starter of this team. He's Carson Wentz in LA. Carson Wentz is not in LA anymore. Stats, Matt. Your lack on your Wentz knowledge. He's the backup till Patty Mahomes down there in KC, hanging out with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. You know, the things that Carson Wentz is known to do, instead of hunting and just secluding himself,
going out into the wilderness by himself.
Exactly. But yes, Joe Flacco is playing great for a backup quarterback. But the thing is, Joe Flacco doesn't do anything. You're not winning the Super Bowl with Joe Flacco this year. And he doesn't help you for the future. The future is around Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson needs to be out there getting all the reps that he can, so that way you can make a concrete decision about Anthony Richardson, potentially after next season or the season after that. You want to give this guy as many chances as possible. You drafted him with the 4th overall pick. He needs to have as many chances as possible to succeed in the NFL, and he's only going to get that with those live reps. That is why we need Anthony Richardson back out there as soon as possible. Okay, Drake, let's talk about the part of the defense that wasn't very good yesterday. That's the pass rush. The pass rush, again, another game with 0 sacks. This time, Will Levis, who holds the ball, typically holds the ball for a long time, but we've got some more stats to show that he was actually getting the ball out pretty quick yesterday. The Stats Matt stat of the day, the final one presented by Busch Light. Will Levis had a 2.23 time to throw yesterday, which was fastest all season, and was pressured on 26.7% of his pass attempts, which typically that's a lot of pressure, a fourth of the time, because I think if you look at the Colts pressure rate, it's much lower than that, but the Titans have a pretty bad offensive line. But yesterday was the lowest that Will Levis was pressured all season. The Titans also used motion on 87.3% of their plays, the most all season. So some very interesting stats there. But Drake, it seems like teams around the league have a very particular game plan against this Colts team. And I think you saw strides against this game plan yesterday, obviously only allowing 95 yards to Will Levis. This Colts defense definitely stepped up. There wasn't as many missed tackles, which definitely helps this game plan. But teams are neutralizing this pass rush by getting the football out quickly, and they're saying we want our guys to go up against this Colts defense in open space, force them to tackle, force them to actually come up and play some defense instead of playing back, and until they can prove that they can stop that, teams are going to continue to do this. It's what the Jaguars did 2 weeks ago. It's what the Titans did yesterday. This week, though, the Colts were able to wrap up and tackle. As we were, I'm going to find some of the comment that was put in here. Yeah, the CFO missed tackles yesterday. Speed 0, Franklin 1, Blackman 1, Jalen Jones 0. They definitely tightened up their tackling, and until they could do that on a consistent basis, it's going to be the same type of thing. But like, this pass rush still needs to step up. I know they're missing DeForest Buckner, but until the pass rush steps up, you're going to have quarterbacks having banner days against this defense.
Yeah, and I do have to say real quick, I think that there was yes, you do need to, for the love of God, get to one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL going into this game, a little bit more than 0 times, for the love of God. I will say that I do think that Gus Bradley went into this contest, no joke, saying, we're not as concerned about the pass rush as we are trying to stop the run, which they did not do. But
no,
Levis had all day, 16 completions, like 6 yards per completion. I don't think they were too worried about maybe not getting pressure on him. I think that they put a lot more emphasis on coverage. I think that they did blitz. Gus Bradley did have some aggression there, but man, even without the pressure and without the consistency, I think Latu and Odengbo each had 2 QB hits. They still bottled him up. I mean, I don't know if that's a testament to Callahan's offense not working, Levis not playing good QB or playing as a good, as a QB, or if it's just that Gus Bradley figured it out. But either way, just the fact that there was so little pressure. I mean, for the love of God, you have Aaron Rodgers coming up, Josh Allen coming up, Jared Goff coming up at some point. You got CJ Stroud again. You just can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Paul, another good question here. Thank you so much for the super chat. Paul's getting right to it. Are we frauds without Buck on our pass rush and run defense? I think he is our defensive captain and miss him dearly. I mean, number one, I definitely think that it just shows Buckner, how good of a player DeForest Buckner is and his impact with this team. I will say this, and I see Stats Matt already talking about it in the chat. DeForest Buckner, the teams play and offensive lines play this Colts team much differently when Buckner is not in the game and when Buckner's not playing. He commands those double teams. And if you watch the film, I didn't get a chance to watch the film today, but I did see some clips on X. And if you guys aren't following Colts Film Room, fantastic follow. He's not even with Horseshoe Huddle, he's with the Blue Stable. But please, just like all the other guys, all the other content creators that we pub on this show, definitely give him a follow if you haven't. He was showing some pass rush reps from the Colts yesterday where Latu and Kwity Paye were winning their pass rush reps and were on a clear way to Will Levis to sack him. It was basically meet at the quarterback. But because there was no interior pressure, Grover Stewart was over there. He was just kind of holding his own. But then you have Mr. Taven Bryan, who was being pushed back 5 yards into the teeth of the defense. Will Levis was able to step up and take off without any issues and right into the throwing lane. So when you're not getting interior pressure like that, and in fact you're getting driven back, it makes it much harder for a pass rush to succeed. Because when you think of all of the great teams that are really good at rushing the passer. You think about the LA Rams for so long with Aaron Donald, Chris Jones with Kansas City right up the middle. Even today, like the Giants, exactly, with sexy Dexter Lawrence, who has 7 sacks on the season, right up the middle. Who are some of the others? The Eagles always have a really good presence with Fletcher Cox for all of those years. Now they have who is it? Jalen Carter. Yep. Up the middle. The teams that lead the NFL in sacks and in pressures almost always have good interior pressure. That is what Calais Campbell, as well as Stats Matt, says. So that is where it comes from, and that's why Buckner is so crucial to this defense. Hopefully he comes back soon. He is eligible to return this week. The Colts are already discussing opening his 21-day practice window. I doubt he plays this weekend against the Dolphins. But if they open it this week, guys, it's not going to take long for DeForest Buckner to be ready. Very well could be back week 8 against the Houston Texans. He can come back this week, as Nathan is asking in the chat. He can come back this week, but I think they're going to give him at least a week of practice to make sure he's good there. So, Paul, thank you so much for all of your support. Really, really do appreciate it, brother. So Drake, to kind of put a bow on this Colts win against the Titans, wasn't a pretty win, but I'll say it again, you're never going to apologize for a win in the NFL. Division games are a lot of times ugly and dogfights, no matter the team, no matter the division, and that's what this one was here. But after 6 weeks, the Colts are sitting at 3-3. After their first divisional win of the season, and we talked about how important that was last week. Can't start 0-3 in the division. Basically, that eliminates you theoretically from even competing for a division title. What, in your opinion, did this win mean for the Indianapolis Colts, or what does it mean for the Indianapolis Colts moving forward?
I think it means that they can get a win regardless of injuries that are sustained to key players that can't play, as well as key players that do play. And I think that they also showed that despite all of that, they can win on the road. Look, man, this team, this was not a pretty win. And I know that the Colts had to go out there with, graybeard Flacco and do fourth quarter heroics and acrobatics again, but they won. All right. They have a bunch of injuries. They're just trying to get through week by week. And what did they do? They got Kenny Moore back. They got Kwity Paye back. Okay. They were missing that against Jacksonville. Okay. So like you're looking at a team that's slowly getting healthier. Now you're getting Anthony Richardson back potentially. So as they get healthier, and then you've got a game upcoming, while you cannot overlook Mike McDaniel ever. I don't care who's playing. I don't care if he has a tree stump playing quarterback. You can't overlook him. You do have a team in the Dolphins that, while they beat the crappy Patriots, they're struggling right now to figure out what their identity is without Tua Tagovailoa. So I think that this is a key game right here that's upcoming, but I think that you're looking at a team that's tough as hell. I think they're well coached. I think that they do believe, crazy enough, in their defensive coordinator. And I think that Shane Steichen has these guys on point, and clearly a guy like Michael Pittman is a hell of an addition for that wide receiver room because they're surrounded by young guys and he's leading by example. So I think you've got yourself a team here is what you have, a good team.
Yeah, I think I would agree there. Stats, Matt, saying keeps the Colts out of a hole they might not be able to dig out of. Also, the AFC isn't great this year. It's a tight race everywhere but the Chiefs, so every win is important. And like I forget who said, I think Patrick said it. The Colts are 7th seed in the AFC right now with 3-3 with all of the injuries. I think this Colts win, it keeps them afloat. It shows Shane Steichen has talked about this multiple times over the past couple of weeks, the resiliency from this bunch, to have all of the injuries that the Colts have had to their entire team, all the starters on the team, and still be at 500 right now. I think it gives this Colts team hope. Yes, if you look at the upcoming schedule, it's not a fun one. Yes, Miami is struggling, but Houston is on fire. Minnesota is on fire. The Buffalo Bills still have Josh Allen. The Detroit Lions, you just saw them decimate the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. So there's some really tough games coming up for this Colts team. But Drake, the Colts are starting to get healthy. Finally, Kwity Paye was back yesterday. Kenny Moore was back yesterday. Like I said, Samuel Womack has become a revelation. Jalen Jones is growing into his own. It seems like we didn't even talk about the rookies that have been uber impressive, like Tanner Bortolini, who came in again yesterday, played fantastic. Dalton Tucker got the start at right guard, held up his end of the bargain. Jalen Carlisle, who is quietly been one of the best linebackers in the NFL when he's been out of there, especially in coverage. He's the perfect coverage linebacker, what the Colts needed. He's done that and more. Almost had a pick yesterday, like you said, but they're expecting other guys back. Anthony Richardson should be back this week. Shane Steichen said Jonathan Taylor is very, very close to returning as well. DeForest Buckner on his way back. Those 3 guys right there make a world of difference for this Colts team. Then you're looking at Tyquan Lewis and that could potentially be coming back down the line. But you get those 3 guys back in Richardson, Taylor, and Buckner. I think that just takes this Colts team to another level. So I think it gives this Colts team hope. They still got to go out there and execute. There's still a lot to clean up. This team has to get a lot better down the stretch and over this next couple of months. But they're not as far away as some people think. And I think they can continue to grow. And especially if their top guys can just stay healthy, which is a big if. I know I'm saying it's a big if, but if they do, this Colts team can still make a playoff run. It's not too. I don't think you can completely rule that out yet, especially if the playoffs started today. They'd already be in the playoffs. So just keep maintaining, continue to improve, and this season still has a long way to go. And the Colts can certainly make enough improvements to still be a very competitive team and then make a push for January.
Yeah, and by the time they do have the primetime game against the Jets and they do play the Bills, they could have, like you said, multiple guys back and healthy, and Anthony Richardson is on track to be healthy. So you got to be pleased with what you've seen from the Colts so far. I know Gus Bradley has pissed off so many fans, but look, they're 3-3. They're injured as hell. They're still out there fighting and competing and winning divisional games. So you got to give credit where it's due.
Exactly. So let's talk about the Colts injury report here, Drake. We talked about Kenny Moore. Kwity Paye back from injury. Obviously, no Anthony Richardson yesterday, still dealing with the oblique. He was the third emergency quarterback dressed yesterday, but it was revealed by Shane Steichen that it was late in the week last week. They decided there was still too much discomfort for Anthony Richardson in that oblique. They really want to wait until he's 100%. And I don't know how many times Shane Steichen has to say this publicly for people to get it through their head. He said, when Anthony Richardson is 100%, he is our quarterback. And he said that barring any setback this week, Anthony Richardson will start on Sunday against the Miami Dolphins. He hasn't been benched. The Colts, again, are just taking this super careful with Anthony Richardson. Again, that's been the plan the entire time. That's why you can tell there is no pressure on Shane Steichen. There's no pressure on Chris Ballard, regardless of what people want there to be. It's all about Anthony Richardson over these next few years. They want to make sure he's out there and healthy, and they don't want to over push him because there's no reason to do that. The Colts are competitive with Joe Flacco, so there's no reason to push Anthony Richardson out there before he's 100% ready, and that looks like it's going to be this weekend against the Miami Dolphins. AR will finally be back.
Yeah, and I do have to really brief. I can't take credit for this, but it was a really good breakdown of the Titans situation at QB and the Colts situation at QB from our own Zach Hicks on Locked On Colts. He mentioned, I think that you're looking at a team that is bought into their guy for the future, that wants to make 100% sure that he's good to go, and they're committed to him. And the Colts with Richardson, as opposed to Levis, who, by the way, couldn't push the ball downfield because he had a shoulder injury, and they had him out there. So it's like, I think you're looking at a team that's like, okay, let's see if he can play. Maybe not, maybe yes, whatever. As opposed to a team who's like, look, he's not 100%. Let's not go, take him out there and have him get hurt when we know Joe Flacco's a veteran and can level the offense, probably win this game for us. I think the Colts were just doing mitigation, and now they're prepping Richardson to start against the Dolphins. So it was just making sure he wasn't going to get hurt.
Yeah, exactly. Patrick saying need to shut up Adam Schefter, saying they should start Flacco due to the hot hand, quote unquote. Okay, guys, I don't share this kind of information, but here's some insider information for you about Adam Schefter and his relationship with the Colts. Ever since that terrible night in August when he announced a certain Colts quarterback was retiring mid-game, Adam Schefter has been completely shut out from anything related to the Indianapolis Colts, and Adam Schefter's a little bit butthurt about that. So that's why you'll see typically negative coverage or trying to stir up the pot when it comes to the Colts with Adam Schefter. Just remember that Adam Schefter really doesn't have any inside information on the Indianapolis Colts moving forward because of what happened with the Andrew Luck retirement. So just kind of keep that in mind. So the rest of the injury report here. Jonathan Taylor still dealing with that ankle injury. He's getting close. I don't have this on the opposite end. I don't have any insider information on this, but it wouldn't surprise me if Jonathan Taylor does practice in some capacity this week. Doesn't mean he's going to play on Sunday. Not going to guarantee that, but he is very, very close to at least practicing. And I think that would be a huge step forward for Jonathan Taylor. They just want to make sure once he's able to cut laterally, because that's such a big part of Jonathan Taylor's game, he will be out there right next to Anthony Richardson in that Colts offense.
Yeah, and I think that the running back room really needs him because you didn't see Evan Hall, even though he got elevated, and Tyler Goodson was explosive, didn't get used too much, and Trey Sermon, well, he did get a touchdown against the Jags. He's just been not very fast in the cuts and really in his lane. So I think the Colts running game really needs Jonathan Taylor back.
Yes, I agree. Ryan Kelly also left the game again yesterday, came back from the neck injury, but then left with a calf injury, did not return. Thank goodness the Colts do have Tanner Bortolini who can step in, and he's played played very, very well, stepping in at center. But Drake, this is kind of what I was worried about to start the season. And this is kind of what I said. It's going to be that Ryan Kelly's future with the Colts is going to be determined by, number one, how he plays when he is out there, and number two, if he can stay healthy. So far early in the season, Ryan Kelly hasn't been able to stay healthy, and Tanner Bortolini has stepped in and played very, very well in Ryan Kelly's stead. So it's making the decision much tougher towards the end of the year. Still a long way to go. Ryan Kelly could come back, still be a Pro Bowl center, and then we're not even having this discussion. But as things stand now, I mean, it's a lot easier for the Colts to cut ties or cut bait with Kelly at this point because Tanner Bortolini has been so impressive to start his NFL career.
Worst possible case scenario right now for Kelly because he's one of them. I think he is literally the longest tenured member on the Colts right now.
He is.
And on top of that, you have a rookie who is playing really well in your stead while you're hurt and you're in a contract year, I believe. So it's like, well, no, he just signed. Did he just sign an extension?
Ryan Kelly is in a contract year, yes.
Okay, so yeah, so I mean, this is like if you're Ryan Kelly, you're just hoping that you're going to get back healthy because he is coming off of a Pro Bowl season where he looked fantastic and he was looking fine until the injury. So we'll have to see what happens there, but that's definitely something to monitor.
Yes, definitely. We only have one thing to report, the latest Colts news and rumors. Poor Spencer Schrader, Drake. Again, cut, sign. The Colts signed Spencer Schrader back to the practice squad. Not much to say there because probably by tomorrow, by the time we talk to you guys again on Thursday, Spencer Schrader won't be on the practice squad anymore. So we'll just have to keep that in mind. But finally, let's wrap up the episode. Colts player of the game, Drake. I think you could go a bunch of different ways with this one. There's a lot of deserving players out there. So who is your Colts player of the game for the win in Tennessee?
I'm going to go ahead and give it to Michael Pittman Jr. I think that you're playing like 75% probably, totally taking a guess here. Didn't really seem even pulled back at all when he had to go out there and make the X factor type of play. So I think without that play, who knows if the Colts win? He had two of the biggest plays in the game when they mattered, man.
Yes, exactly. I'm going Michael Pittman Jr. as well. The stat sheet isn't going to tell the whole picture. 3 catches, 35 yards, and the touchdown. But without Michael Pittman on the field yesterday, the Colts do not win that game. They do not have an AFC South win, and they're currently looking at a 2-4 record without Michael Pittman Jr. Fantastic effort by him. The reason I wrote about him was because I was so impressed with his play yesterday. And again, it's why I always say, when the ball is in Michael Pittman's hands, good things happen. It did once again yesterday. Stats Matt say the player of the game for him is Samuel Womack. Paul Wilson going Pitt on this one. Stats Matt also says the play of the game is split between the Pittman touchdown and the immaculate punt to put Tennessee away. Again, shout out to Rigoberto Sanchez for the fantastic punt. One of the best punts I have ever seen. Just died at the 3-yard line. Again, chef's kiss. If that was Pat McAfee, he'd take out the old sand wedge and give it a little hit out there. Just a perfect punt. Sean Cartwright also saying Michael Pittman Jr. So Drake, the Colts are 3-3, and they're looking forward to coming back home this weekend to play a struggling Miami Dolphins team. No Tua Tagovailoa for the Dolphins, but as we said last week, the Dolphins still yesterday on Bleacher Report, Dolphins still have a lot of weapons on both sides of the ball. The Colts cannot take this team lightly. Otherwise, they will get upset at home.
Yeah, you got arguably the best duo at wide receiver and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in the full backfield that's now healthy with Raheem Mostert.
Exactly. So hopefully we see Anthony Richardson out there and he picks up where he left off against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's our show for this evening, guys. Really, really appreciate everybody tuning in on this Victory Monday for us to break down the Colts win over the Tennessee Titans. Shout out to Truitt and Paul Wilson for the super chats. Really, really appreciate you guys, as well as everyone else that joined us this evening. If you haven't done so, I don't know what you're doing, but please go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts_SI on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night so you never miss us. And then if you can't catch us live or on YouTube, I'm going back up here to the very top. I want to see Lindsay's comment again. We're going to throw it up there. If you can't catch them live, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So be sure to give us a 5-star review and continue, so that way we can continue to reach other Colts fans just like you. Drake, I know you've got plenty of content out there on Horseshoe Huddle. You're the hardest working man in Colts media. Tell the people what they need to go check out.
So I did some post-game coverage, did the risers and fallers in the Colts victory. I also did an update on the QB situation, and then QB situation with what the Colts are going to have, as opposed to the QB situation the Colts will face with the Miami Dolphins. So go check all that out.
Make sure you give those a read, guys. And for myself, like I said, wrote about Michael Pittman Jr. and his toughness and clutch play, how that elevated the Colts to a victory yesterday, and had some very exciting and very interesting comments from Shane Steichen and Joe Flacco about Michael Pittman Jr. So make sure you check that out, as well as everything else on horseshoehuddle.com. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL, and we'll be back Thursday night to break it all down as the Colts take on the Miami Dolphins in a Week 7 matchup back at Lucas Oil Stadium. It should be a really fun one to talk about. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the rest of your victory Monday, and we'll see you right back here on Thursday night.